I'm here with Bob Paterson from Community Finance Solutions. You say that CLTs are 19th century practice for 21st century purpose. Can you talk us through why you think CLTs are important now?
They're important now because we're entering an era where there isn't going to be large-scale government money to address issues of social deprivation and poverty. And what I mean by that is, although the affordable housing programme is high at the moment, it's likely to fall considerably. And even at its present level, it's not meeting housing needs, particularly in rural areas. In the 19th century, before we had, if you like, state raising large sums of money for from taxation to pay for social goods, working people formed housing cooperatives, friendly societies and other mechanisms using industrial and provident society and charitable legislation. And some of those institutions are still with us, like almshouse trusts, philanthropic trusts. And what I'm arguing is that these are also appropriate solutions for the 21st century, not just because it relieves the state of public expenditure, but it also means it unleashes the potential of individuals to contribute to the well-being of their own communities. It's rather a long answer, wasn't it?
And can you talk us through a potted history of CLTs in Britain?
A potted history, yeah, God. A potted history of CLTs in England would be that there's an antecedence in almshouse trusts and the Garden City movement of Ebenezer Howard and Octavia Hill, and they actually spoke about and implemented projects which, if you like, lay people controlled. That is lain dormant for probably 90 years. We're now at the cusp of people rediscovering their ability to solve complex local problems around access to housing. So in the last 10 years, partly following the lead in Scotland, where the devolved administration set up the Scottish Community Land Fund, in England we've taken those examples and examples from the United States and begun to implement them in rural and urban communities, whereby homes are actually being built for local people.
And you say it's not just affordable housing, it's moving into other areas, land and...
Housing is difficult to define in any way. What is affordable for one person isn't necessarily affordable for another, but it's about where there is market failure and people have good jobs and they've got certain income. Quite often they can't get into the housing market. But increasingly people are thinking about, well, it's not just a roof over my head, it's about where am I going to grow food, how am I going to access to have good food, and how am I going to get access to land generally. Although land is a finite quantity, there's actually quite a lot of unused land. And what we're talking about is communities, perhaps non-traditional communities, building houses and using the land to grow their own food. And in one project I'm talking to, actually use an adjoining field to grow biomass to fuel the combined heat and power plant.
We've heard today from Grant Shapps, the Shadow Housing Minister. What do you think is needed politically to enhance the value of CLTs and to see more being built?
I mean, the Conservative Party, to be re-elected, need to have the support of our rural constituencies. The key issue in rural constituencies is access to housing. So community land trusts provide a policy prescription for the Conservative Party, but actually they're going with the flow. That is not just the Conservative Party, it's also common sense that, we as individuals can see that, by working together we can achieve things which aren't necessarily going to be provided by the state. So the Conservative Party, I think, has got a fair wind. And it might seem an unnatural partnership to start with, but in reality, if they deliver on what they say, it will probably mean lift off for community land trusts.
So you think they're tackling the barriers that need to be tackled?
They're talking about the barriers that need to be tackled. Tackling them is a function of being in government and doing it.
Uh-huh. So what's next? How do you see CLT movement developing in the future?
What's next for the CLT movement is to try and get more homes built despite all the barriers, because that's what motivates people. They can see that if an early adopter has done it, we can also do it. So even though Boris Johnson is committed to do one CLT by 2011, it's one more that's actually been done rather than talked about.
Mm-hmm.
So in the next year, I would like to see, we've actually created more homes, we've standardised the processes and practices to achieve those homes, and thirdly, that the policy environment is positive rather than sitting on the fence, which is in essence the current government's policy.